do look like a salesman dressed like this at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, don't I?
Yeah.
Good. Give me just 1 second.
No problem. Good to see you again.
Thank you. You guys want to just sit here? Do you want to? Does it matter?
Your choice.
You want me on this side of the desk with you, or?
What's easier if you set up? You want us both on the same side of the desk? Or?
It doesn't matter to me.
Okay.
It's the old,
That's good. You saw what my desk looked like in the office at your tape every day.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
Well, and this was much worse. This is the clean version also, but anyhow. It doesn't matter. That's just my lists of contacts and who's going to be at the forum tonight, actually.
Great. So how's everything looking like? You're going to get as good a turnout as we had for the last one?
Probably not, but I didn't orchestrate this one. So.
No. There you go.
No, well, it's just you know, some of the candidates like the debate forum, but you know, obviously we tried something different. I think that's what kind of got the candidates excited.
Yeah.
So.
Now, don't mind him. Don't worry about the camera. This is we have so much raw footage. We have hundreds and hundreds of raw footage up now, right now, because you know what we do is we film everything, every meeting that I go to and everything. We put it up there. Honestly, half the time I don't even watch the raw footage, so I don't know if anybody else is or not.
Well, that's cool.
But mainly it's there because you know we want to make sure that we have the transparency and we have the accountability and that, number one, nobody can accuse me of going out and talking to you and saying one thing and then going to a different group of people and saying something different. Also, it's hopefully a way to get people more engaged in the process when they can see the everyday nuts and bolts of it. You know, it gives them hopefully more of an incentive to get involved.
Well, I think it's a great idea because, like you said, there's some people that are going to accuse you of doing things behind closed doors no matter what you do, and that's a good way for you to be able to make sure that they can see what's going on.
You know, and I think that's the biggest problem that we have right now in Washington. In particular, I mean, when we talk to you know, a lot of the guys that we'll see tonight on this municipal level or the county level or even the state level, there's much better access and there's much better interface.
Katie, can you stop complaining for a while because it's going to be background noise? That probably would be helpful.
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
Damien has gotten so used to just recording in any conditions now. I don't even think he thinks about it anymore.
I think that's...
Well, again, you know, I'm sure that there are people who do want to hear what's going on. I mean...
Always a good thing.
Okay.
But yeah, and you know, especially on the federal level, I mean, I think everyone's so frustrated because we feel like we don't have any sort of interface. That there's no reliable means of talking to our congressmen and talking to our senators. Particularly our congressman, since that's the race I'm in.
Or a lot of them don't listen to the little guys.
Yeah, and you know the problem that we have with our current congressman is the fact that he just never seems to be around.
I've seen him in USEPA, but that's the only place I've ever seen him.
You've actually been to USEPA, that's...
yeah, him and his dad were both there in USEPA, but that's the only time, and it certainly wasn't necessarily listening to constituents that day, so.
You know, it's such a contrast. I mean, his dad was actually the first politician I ever met. I remember it was July 4th at Lakes Park in Cape Coral. I was very young, but I think he was, I don't remember if he was our representative at the time or if he was in the state, but he was the first political guy I ever met. But there's kind of a bit of a contrast between the father and the son, I think. A lot of people seem to feel that way.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised that he didn't come to the Politics in the Park event, being that he was in the area. You know, you would have thought that he would have cut out of Cape Coral and come over here since he knew everyone that was running against him was here also, but unfortunately that didn't happen. And he even had someone who worked on his campaign personally ask him to come, and he still didn't.
It seems that the strategy that he's engaged in is trying to ignore the competition, ignore the fact that there's an election, that it's actually not up to him to decide who he runs against. It's up to the people.
Yeah.
One of the things that I'm hoping to, I've spoken with Bert Saunders about it, and I'm hoping also to speak to Robert Neal tonight if he's there, because I want to try and grab both of them, and I want to make a commitment that we will have a debate no matter what. And I know Bert Saunders is on board with the idea, and I'm sure Robert Neal will be as well. And we will do everything we can to get Connie Mack in the debate, but if we can't, it'll be the three of us in an empty podium where he's supposed to be.
Cool.
Because I think that's sort of, the most common complaint I hear about our incumbent is the fact that he's never around. So I think that's kind of symbolic of the situation a lot of people seem to have with
I
him.
don't think he's due to come tonight either.
What is the status of this policy payment-wise?
Not surprised.
That would be the first time we'd have seen him out on, I don't know, how many forums have we done so far? I mean,
It's about
yeah,
half a
dozen, yeah.
So he's not attended anyone's forum.
He hasn't attended anyone's forum, so don't feel left out.
Yeah.
He's not
Okay.
singling out Lehigh.
Okay, well that's, I guess, nice to know.
So they're paid in full until October.
The main thing that I want to talk to you about today is, and instead of me giving you the pitch for our campaign, is I just wanted to get a sense of where you're at right now, where the chamber's at, and what your big issues are for what's going on in Lehigh, and what you need specifically from the federal government.
Well, I think that a number of things that occurred here that have totally flipped the opposite direction now is, we were having huge population growth. We weren't seeing a lot of the money coming this direction, that kind of thing. Obviously, the population growth has slowed and even gone backwards a little bit. We do see a lot of people coming back at this particular point. We're talking to a lot of people that are buying second homes here, things like that. It's starting to occur at the point. But one of my major things that I wanted to talk about was the insurance also, and just some of the suggestions that I don't know how things work at the higher levels necessarily, but to give you a little bit of insight so that you could get insight from someone who's in the insurance business, so that when you guys are discussing it in Congress, that you have some enlightened information. Obviously, I don't know how to do your job. You're the expert at your job. I'm kind of the expert at my job. I had talked to some other insurance agents about this as well. There is a national flood program that's in place, and because of what's happened with insurance in the state of Florida, and of course the mass exodus out, and now State Farm's trying to increase the premiums by 47%, and all states saying they want to do the same thing, and et cetera, insurance has become a big deal to people. Citizens being put into effect for homeowners has helped immensely. They've also got a rate freeze on Citizens. They're not supposed to be able to increase the rates until 2010 at least. That's helped a lot. But one of the ideas that I had was, if you took the flood system and expanded on that, and did where it was all natural disasters, not necessarily flood, that would take a lot of burden off of the insurance companies and the states themselves, who have to back the insurance companies, because obviously there's us, there's Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, all of those states. I don't know how their insurance premiums are working right now, but I'm assuming that they're all going up also.
Everybody, this is a problem
Because-
everywhere, especially the hurricane areas that you mentioned.
Exactly. Well, and then there's North Carolina, South Carolina, all the way up the coast. Okay, we have problems with hurricanes, but a lot of the places in the country don't have hurricanes, okay, but they've got to worry about tornadoes, wildfires, floods. They've got their own natural disasters to worry about. And if we did something where the federal government backed all natural disasters the way they back flood, then it might make sense that again, we could take the burden off of the states and consequently off of the insurance companies indirectly, because the states do back the insurance companies at this point, that it just might make sense to do something like that, because the flood's already in place. You could either mimic it or use that as the base for the other natural disasters that could occur.
Now, so if I understand what you're suggesting, one option might be to basically take the flood standards that we have now and apply that to all natural disasters, like you just said,
Mm-hmm.
would that be basically putting everything into the same pool? Would that be putting it everything as it would be a single type of coverage, or?
Well, I'm thinking, okay, let the insurance companies take some of the burden off of them by making them worry about huge natural disasters.
Mm-hmm.
Let them cover you for the fire, theft, vandalism, the burglaries, the other little things that can happen to your home that you buy insurance for. That way, because a huge part of an insurance premium now is just the hurricane portion.
Mm-hmm.
If you took that away, we could get people's homeowners' premiums back down to $500 or $600. And then if they bought a separate policy for the natural disaster, what the government does is right now the federal government subsidizes the flood premiums.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't pay the whole premium for it. It's actually paid in essence by the federal government. So if we could buy a smaller policy that would only cost us $300 or $400 to cover us for natural disasters, then you're looking at only having to pay $900, maybe $1,000 for an insurance premium per year, instead of having to pay $1,500 or $2,000 for an insurance premium. And again, the flood's already in place. You could either expand on that to, instead of just including flood, have that include all natural disasters, or still keep the flood separate and mirror that program to have all of the other natural disasters. Because for the flood, every single address in America can buy a flood policy, and they're already set to be able to write that flood policy for the people. So like I said, it's not reinventing the wheel. It would be mirroring it or just expanding on what's already there.
Okay. Now, is this an idea that's been gaining any traction within the insurance industry, or?
Probably not. Probably not. The insurance companies like the control.
Mm-hmm.
But by the same token, we have to do something. I mean, we just have to do something, because I myself, 6 or 8 years ago, was paying $500 or $600 a year for an insurance premium. I've taken the highest deductibles possible, and I'm still paying $1,400 a year, and that's taking a $5,000 deductible on everything, which is something that most people can't afford to do. But I've chosen to, so that I can make it affordable. I know my risks. Some people don't understand insurance enough to be able to understand their options. Some mortgage companies won't allow people to do that.
Now, I know I talked to a lot of people in the area, and I mean, the ratings just came out today, and Fort Myers and Cape Coral is leading the nation again in a number of foreclosures. And one of the things that more and more people that I talk to, even the people that didn't get these high risk loans, what I see driving more and more people out of the area is, in fact, the insurance rates. That's probably the number one complaint that I get from most homeowners is the insurance rates. So if there's something that we could do on a federal level to help bring that down, and again, I do understand that insurance is a business. There's no question about that. But I mean, if you look at the rate of natural disasters that we've been having across the country, there's a lot of causes for it. If nothing else, I mean, the very first thing you can look at is the fact that we're building out in so many areas that we, traditionally never built out before. That we're seeing problems there. There's a pretty strong argument that climate change has a lot to do with the changes that we're seeing. Particularly in the Gulf. Of course, doesn't necessarily make more hurricanes, but warmer water makes stronger hurricanes. It makes it. What do we have in the Gulf? We had 2 Category 5 storms last year.
I believe it was.
Yeah, fortunately.
Was it last year or the year before?
Last year.
I think last year.
Fortunately, both of them hit in unpopulated areas and lost strength quickly. But I mean, that should be a wake-up call to everybody.
Well, and look at how many tornadoes we're having in the Midwest. I mean, it was like boom, boom, boom. It was like every day you'd wake up and another tornado hit somebody, which I'm sure that the climate change has something to do with that too.
So I mean, this is something that we've got to we've got to take care of. I know a lot of people have been unhappy with the direction that the state's moved in the last year or two in the insurance area. A lot of people.
Well, I can tell you from my end, that a lot of people should be thankful that the state's done what they've done, because it has brought the premiums down some. It used to be, instead of $1,500, $2,000 in premiums, we were talking $2,500. Some people even had $3,000 in premiums. So it has helped. But number one, they've kind of ignored the commercial market, because the condos and the apartment buildings and the commercial clients that we have that aren't the big guys, they're the little guys, their premiums are still ridiculous too. So they did help with the homeowners market, but again, that's something that, and I know that's not necessarily you, that is the state, but they need to expand to include all buildings in Florida as opposed to just single family homes and duplexes.
What's how much have rates gone up for commercial?
On the condos, it's not unheard of for a condo association that has 24 to 36 units to be paying $20,000 to $25,000, $30,000 in an insurance premium for just the structures. That doesn't cover the insides of the homes and the people's belongings and everything else. That is covering the building and liability in most cases.
So, kind of, well, we got the camera here. I don't mean to put you on the spot. So.
Okay.
Kind of walk us through the process from when a homeowner goes out and they buy the home and they get the insurance to when they need to file a claim for something like Hurricane Charlie or a major disaster like that, and kind of give us the stops along the way where there's a problem with where the current pricing structure is.
As far as, I don't know that I completely understand what
Just basically go ahead and walk us through the process, and I'll ask questions.
Okay, somebody calls me and says, I'm purchasing this home. Of course, go on the property appraiser's website, print out all the information about square footage, etc. Go to the insurance companies, do what's called a replacement cost estimator, which determines how much the insurance companies say it's going to cost them to rebuild a home in the event of a total loss. When I go to quote them, I of course quote them with multiple companies. Some of them have their own replacement cost estimators. I can either use that replacement cost estimator, which is the insurance company's number, or I can use an appraisal, which is a real estate number. Used to be those things were usually very close. Now the appraisals, of course, are coming in much lower, which does in some cases cause a problem, because it could be that 2 years from now that home could be significantly uninsured or underinsured, because the real estate market hopefully bounces back at least somewhat during that time. Also, a lot of the times the banks, because the mortgage is maybe a higher number, need us to use one or the other. Okay. Go ahead and quote the company or quote the client. It's based on square footage. It's based on what kind of roof the people have. It's based on what year the home is built, so whether it's built to the new standards, old standards, what have you. And of course, the new wind mitigation forms are very helpful. Some people's homes, if they were built prior to 2002, were built better than other people's homes. It just depended on the builder and how they did things. So if they had the home built with more straps and more reinforcements and better windows and better connections for the trusses to the roof and better connections of the roof sheathing to these trusses, and then the shingles were connected at 6-inch intervals instead of 12-inch intervals, etc., etc. So that's the factor. We have seen that that has been very helpful to people, because on average most people have gotten between $200 and $500 back on their homeowner's insurance, a discount. We have had some people that have gotten as high as $1,000 discount, but of course those were the homes that were more expensive to insure anyhow, because they were probably closer to the water, would be one of the big factors, or they were in an area that's called the wind pool. The wind pool is an area where basically you have a better chance of having a wind claim than somewhere else in the county. For example, Lehigh doesn't have a very high chance of having a wind claim because we're 20 miles in from the water. We also are a higher flood zone because we are the highest point in Lee County. So chances are we're not going to get those kinds of claims here. Obviously, we found out during Charlie and Wilma that we do have those claims here. I personally lost the roof on my house. All the shingles blew off. So, you know, it does happen. We write the policy. We give it to the mortgage company. They're happy. They do the closing with the people, and everybody's happy. Now, what's happening sometimes with renewals is, number one, citizens can sell their insurance policies to other insurance companies. Citizens is the state-backed homeowners insurance for Florida. Citizens sells the policies or gives them away. It's called a takeout, similar to a mortgage, your mortgage company selling your mortgage. When these new insurance companies take over the policy, most of them have agreed to make the policy at the same premium or even 10% less. But there's some of them out there that haven't agreed to that. We've seen premiums go up significantly at renewal for the people. We say, hey, we saw this is happening. Okay, let us requote you. We'll start the process over again, see if there's another insurance company that we can get a better premium for you. But one of the other issues we happen to have in this area is that there's not city water and sewer in all areas of Lehigh. You get outside of the area where you're within 1,000 feet of a fire hydrant. Premiums go up significantly for that too, because chances are if you ever do have a fire, your house is going to suffer significant damage if the trucks run out of water, if they can't get there in time, which everything here is within 5 miles of a fire station now, but that is one of the other factors that does, especially if you have a wood frame home and you don't have a fire hydrant near your house. That's a huge factor, and that causes the premium to jump up to the $3,000 to $4,000 range in some cases too.
I've never understood why anybody would buy a wood frame home in this area, but
honestly, it's much more wind resistant.
Really?
It's better to have a wood frame home for hurricane purposes.
Interesting.
So.
See, I remember back when Andrew hit.
Yeah.
I remember the pile of toothpicks that were left, and you look at all the old Florida-style houses. And
well, for any of us, if we get direct hits, we've all got problems anyhow, no matter what it is. I mean, just look at Charlie and what it did to Sanibel and Port Charlotte. I mean, you know, you get hit directly, you're going to have significant damage no matter what your house is built out of. Unless it's poured concrete with a poured concrete roof, you've got a problem because your openings are going to be where you're going to have to worry about windows blowing in, doors blowing in, that kind of stuff. So.
Now, you mentioned, I remember back when Charlie and Wilma came through, there was a lot of confusion with a lot of people about what was covered by what was covered by wind, and what was covered by flood.
Well, they have Citizens is kind of trying to fix all of that. They're combining the wind and the regular homeowners together again. Flood, which I know with Katrina, they had a lot of issues with flood. Flood is rising water. So in other words, if a pipe breaks in your wall, washing machine overflows, dishwasher overflows, something like that, it's covered under your regular homeowner's policy. But if you have rising water from too much rain, a river, the ocean ending up in your living room, that kind of thing, that's covered by flood. And that's how they determine the flood zones, which it's going to get interesting over the next couple of years because the Army Corps of Engineers just went through this area and reassessed what was flood zones and what's not flood zones. And I don't have extreme details on how they do this, but basically they're saying where it's more likely to have a flood than where it's not. And they base it on how many feet of water it will take for an area to flood. Writing a policy for Cape Coral, they're saying that they think it's 8 feet that the water has to rise before it's going to end up damaging this house. The house is built at 8 feet, so he's not got a lot of leeway as far as that goes. However, we do occasionally find houses where, especially if it's built a few years ago, maybe that 8 foot didn't apply, and their houses were built at 7 feet instead of 8 feet. Now they're below flood stage, and their premium's going to go through the roof.
Yeah, I know that's always a big problem in Cape Coral in particular. Do you know if the new standards that the Corps put together, are they significantly different from the flood standard, the flood ratings that they had before?
In certain areas. I've got one guy in North Fort Myers that was in a flood zone that is now not going to be in a flood zone anymore, which is great because he was below flood stage. I've got one policy I just quoted in Cape Coral that was not below flood stage, and now he's going to be 1 foot below flood stage. The premium went from the normal of $700 to $900. It was going to be $3,600, and that wasn't including his contents. That was just covering the house, which everyone knows if you have a mortgage, the bank forces you to carry that kind of coverage if you're in a flood zone. So, I mean, it's going to mess a few people up. And it's, like I said, it's mostly the homes. A lot of the homes in Cape Coral now have been built up on the Indian mound, as everybody calls it, if they've been some of the newer houses. So those houses will be safe. But it's the ones that were built in the 70s or 80s that if they were built after the firm date, which I believe was 1975 for flood. If you were built before 75, you're okay. They don't make you use an elevation certificate. But if you were built after that, so something built in the 80s that wasn't built up higher, those people could have a problem, and they could make it so that it's very difficult for them to sell their homes, because when the new buyers coming in hear these kind of premiums, a lot of them just let the deal fall through.
Yeah, well, I can't do that until the 12th.
Especially with so many units being out there in the market right now. It's difficult enough to move it as it is. And
the one house that I said that wasn't below flood level, that is now going to be 1 foot below flood level, that guy didn't buy that house. He's writing one of the policies where he's at flood level, and he's okay with that. And his premium, instead of being $3,600, is going to be $700
That's
and
the way
change.
it would go with them anyway.
So it makes a huge difference. And I mean, let's face it, with the economy being what it is and the job market being what it is in this area, to people, $3,000 a year is a huge difference.
It's definitely a big difference. I mean, this is one of the things that I grew up in this area, and my mother's family is always, my grandmother managed a 7-Eleven for 35 years. My mother used to work in retail, and so I mean, I know exactly what people in that sector are going through. I mean, that's the environment I grew up in, and I mean, you work at Walmart, you work at Target. I mean, look at Lee Boulevard. I mean, just look at the jobs that are available here. I mean, a sizable portion, I'm not singling out Lehigh, I'm not picking on Lehigh, but a sizable portion of these jobs are all just barely above minimum wage service jobs.
Well, we're having a lot of domino effect. I mean, the construction jobs left, so people aren't going to the restaurants, and they aren't going out and buying clothes, and they're not going out and doing things. And when you're a small business and you don't have millions of dollars backing you, I mean, we also know that there's a lot of them that are going to go out of business.
Yeah, the number I keep hearing from more and more business people, which is really upsetting, is around 40%. People have said that they've seen their sales drop in the last few years. Basically,
we lost most of our commercial clients. We had small contractors. We had their commercial auto and their general liability and things like that, and we've lost probably 90% of them.
So, aside from your expertise in the area of insurance, which I greatly appreciate hearing about, what are some of the other things that you think needs to happen that might help spur the economy in this area that could happen on a federal level?
I mean, there's so many things that would be on a state level that I don't know if the federal would be getting involved in it. If we could, get some kind of break on our taxes. Okay, instead of the property taxes, do the sales tax thing. I think that would probably be helpful to a lot of us, because I think at this point a lot of people are being deterred from buying houses, and we need to get rid of our surplus so that people can go back to work again building new stuff. And I know that a lot of the commercial is being built right now, but commercial's in the pipeline for a couple of years before it actually gets built. So 2 years from now, I don't think we're going to be having commercial stuff going on here either. You know, obviously with Florida, there's something we need to do with our education system too. We are consistently in the bottom of the country. And I can tell you, it's been a long time ago, but I came here from another state, and I could have graduated as a sophomore here because I had more credits than I needed to graduate, but they couldn't let me graduate as a sophomore because they couldn't let me do that. So my junior year, I worked in the principal's office, so they had something to do with me. I had already had every class that there was that they offered here because they're far behind what there was in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, that's funny. I had the exact opposite problem when I was in high school.
Oh, really?
Because what happened is I graduated, or I should have graduated in '86, and there was a time they realized our credit requirements were too low, so they kept raising it every year. And the year that I was in '86, it was 23 out of 24. And then for '87, it was 24 out of 24. You couldn't fail one single class your entire time in high school. And they had added a whole bunch of new requirements. And I was like a credit and a half behind. And if I had gone to summer school my junior year, I could have got the credit back, but I still would have been half credit behind. So I would have fallen under the '87 graduation requirements, which meant that I would have had to stay in high school 6 years to make up for all the new requirements that weren't required, you know, when I had started. So I ended up getting a GED.
Oh, really? So they didn't start you out with the new requirements for the freshmen coming into high school. They kind of started you in the middle there, huh?
Yeah, it was because I would have technically I was gonna. It looked like I was gonna fail my junior year. So for my senior. The next junior year, I would have been included in the class of '87 instead of '86. So, and that was I was going to Cape Coral High School, and we had over 4,000 students at Cape Coral High in the '85-'86 year. There was something like 40 portables lined up, you know, in back of the school. So, I mean, I know firsthand. You know, I like to joke that I'm a failure of the Florida public school system.
Well, and like I said, I mean, I know I wasn't the only one. There were some other kids in school. I mean, and we're like, what do we repeat classes? You know, what do we do? What do they do with us? And the school system was surprised. But, you know, watching my nieces and nephews going through the school system, they were struggling, and yet the school system kept pushing them forward when they didn't have some of the basic skills that they needed. And yes, they were probably before the FCAT thing was really taking hold, but by the same token, my ex-brother-in-law graduated from high school and doesn't know how to read. How can that be? I mean, I just don't understand that end of the system. And for that matter, why doesn't the school system have the same requirements for the entire country? We're all Americans. You know, what state we live in shouldn't matter as far as what education we get. Why can't everybody get the same exact education?
Yeah, this is a big issue that goes back and forth between state and federal rights. And, I would love to see a national curriculum. Unfortunately, I don't think it's realistic to be able to enforce that curriculum across the board. I think one of the problems that we have now on the federal level, particularly, I mean, you look at No Child Left Behind, is we have a system that basically it's designed to penalize poor performing schools. So you have one of two things that happens. Either schools that are performing poorly, which are generally in districts or in areas that need the most help, either they don't get more help, they get less help because they're performing poorly, or, and that this happens quite a bit, is they end up fudging the test results and juggling the numbers around to inflate their stats. And one of the problems that we're seeing nationwide is with No Child Left Behind, and just, a lot of the standardized test regimens, is that schools are jumping through hoops to pump up their statistics. The dropout rate that we're seeing realistically across the country right now is probably somewhere between 30 and 40%, but we don't see that in the actual numbers because if someone, for example, if a girl gets pregnant, they don't count her as a dropout because she left for medical reasons in certain school districts. You know, there's all these little tricks that they do. you know, to hide these numbers. And you need to change?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.